In March 2024, Rileystrain was on a pub crawl with friends down Broadway in Nashville, the popular main strip packed with shops, bars, and restaurants. The 22-year-old left his last bar of the night at just past 9:30 p.m. He seemed to vanish only minutes later. Even with cameras retracing his steps through the city, there were gaps in his movements, witnesses coming forward that could not always be trusted. Clues were being uncovered that raised more questions than answers. And amateur sleuths online were both helping and hurting the investigation. Hi there, I'm Kevin and welcome to Just Thought Lounge. Today's case has recently gone viral across social media. Amongst the mystery of Riley's disappearance is a family desperate for answers, bizarre clues that seem to defy common sense, and a few outlandish theories. Let's take a look. In early March 2024, brothers from the Delta Chi fraternity in Missouri were on a short visit to Nashville, Tennessee. One of the frat brothers, 22-year-old Rileystrain, was a recent business and financial planning graduate who had just landed an internship at Northwestern Mutual. At 6'7" with a thin build, Riley stood out in a crowd. The recent grad was extremely close to his family and kept in frequent contact with his mother, Michelle. The two regularly shared messages and phone calls, as often as 2 to 3 times a day. And so it was while on a Friday night out in Nashville. Riley FaceTimed with his mother sometime between 7:30 and 8 p.m. while having a drink at Garth Brooks's bar, Friends in Low Places. Michelle recalled that her son was enjoying himself, but he did not strike her as drunk, just in good spirits. Only an hour and a half later, however, at Luke's 32 Bridge Food and Drink, a location just minutes away from Brooks's bar on Broadway Street, Riley was asked by a member of staff to leave. There had been no altercation, physical or otherwise, but after being served 1 beer and 2 glasses of water at Luke's, Riley was deemed too intoxicated to remain at the establishment. He was walked to the exit by a friend. There, they parted ways. Riley told his companions that he would walk back to the hotel where the larger group were all staying, the Tempo by Hilton. It was a short walk, maybe 10 minutes, requiring him to take only one right-hand turn off of Broadway. Riley walked out of the bar, but instead of retracing his steps down Broadway, he went east and began walking parallel to the Cumberland River. It was 9:35 p.m. when Riley left Luke's 32. It would be hours later before his friends would realize that he had not made it back to the hotel. The rest of the group returned to the Tempo that night at around 3:15 a.m., at which time they saw that Riley wasn't there. He also wasn't found in any of the other rooms where roughly 30 members of the fraternity were staying. So they went back out to look for him, trying to track him using Snapchat locations. When that proved fruitless, the brothers thought they should place a call to Riley's mother, Michelle, and his stepfather, Chris. The parents, distraught, immediately set out on the roughly 6-hour road trip to Nashville. One of Riley's friends, named Braden, had been one of the young men out searching for Riley. Calls made to his cell phone went straight to voicemail. At 1:35 a.m., Braden called 911 to report his friend missing.
Who is it that you're wanting to report is missing? We're here on a fraternity formal trip. It's one of my good buddies. What is his name? His name is Rileystrain. He's white, 22-year-old, 6'5", blonde. And what was he last seen wearing?
Outside of Luke Bryan's bar last night at like 10, and then the last time his location on his phone was by the sheriff's office at like 11 p.m. He's wearing jeans, boots, and a half black shirt, half brown, light brown.
Okay, and you said it last showed outside the sheriff's department?
Like around that area by the river, by the sheriff's department over there.
Okay.
When Michelle and Chris finally arrived in Nashville, they were hurt and disappointed to find that the fraternity brothers appeared to have no intention of pausing their weekend plans in the midst of Riley's disappearance. 150 young men helping in the search could have been an overwhelming help to the effort. Instead, the parents watched on as the fraternity prepared for their formal event, partied, and carried on. The couple were further deflated when they learned that within these first crucial hours and days after Riley went missing, law enforcement in Nashville allegedly failed to assign a detective to the case. This was the first of a few apparent missteps by the Nashville Metropolitan Police, which seemed to slow down the investigation and frustrate family members. Friends, volunteers, and social media warriors would descend upon the city in the following days, all motivated to find answers and to find Riley alive. A timeline of the night of his disappearance was slowly being pieced together. The festivities began in the early evening at Miranda Lambert's Casa Rosa, a venue known for its Tex-Mex fare and cocktails. The group spent just over an hour at the restaurant. By about 7:30, the frat brothers moved on. A 2-minute walk on Broadway brought them to Garth Brooks's bar, Friends in Low Places. It was there, between 7:30 and 8 p.m., that Riley FaceTimed his mother and had a quick chat. Michelle said later, it didn't even sound like he was drinking a lot. Bank records and subsequent interviews with friends showed that the next stop was Kid Rock's bar, just a stone's throw further down Broadway. They spent about an hour at that bar. Riley's bank records confirm that he was there, but what he ordered has not been publicly confirmed. The group turned up at Luke Bryant's 32 Bridge Bar, Riley's final stop of the night, at 9:15 p.m. There, Riley would have passed through door security and shown ID before entering. Evidently, his behavior was not a concern at that time, as he was given entry. In the next 21 minutes that he spent there, Riley ordered 1 beer and 2 waters. By 9:36 p.m., Riley walked out of the bar after being kicked out by staff. At 9:46 and 9:47 p.m., 2 cameras caught Riley stumbling along First Avenue and then down Gay Street. He had made a wrong turn off of Broadway and was walking close to the Cumberland River, instead of further west where the Tempo Hotel is located. Another camera captured Riley break into a run briefly before he stumbled into a sign. Afterwards, he appears to hold his hand to his head as he continues down the street. He was wandering further north, nowhere near to his hotel. It has been speculated that Riley, in a strange city, had perhaps Googled the hotel address and returned the walking directions for a software company called Your Tempo, which is located in the direction he traveled along the Cumberland River. At 9:52, Riley was spotted by a police officer on Gay Street. While the officer examined a vehicle that had been broken into, he called out to Riley.
How you doing, sir? I'm good. How are you? Good.
The 22-year-old did not appear distressed. The last of several videos, which have not been released to the public, reportedly tracked Riley moving north towards the James Robertson Parkway Bridge. He paused just past a yellow sign for several seconds, perhaps using his phone. He sent a confusing text that night to a girlfriend. She asked him how he was doing, and Riley responded, "Good, Lops." His phone last pinged at 9:58 p.m., right after he walked under the bridge. Under the James Robertson Bridge, Riley stumbled into a homeless encampment. One man who lived at the camp, who was perhaps the last to see Riley alive, recounted that the 22-year-old caused a commotion when he walked through, adding that he was very intoxicated.
I seen the guy that went missing. He came down through here. We heard a commotion. We looked back up. He almost fell over. The last bush right there caught him. He was very, very, very intoxicated, I guess. I mean, he was stumbling harder I've never seen anybody stumble that hard before. I yelled up. They said, "No, he's just drunk. He's okay."
This witness claims that Riley continued on, traveling north parallel to the river. A camera on the building just on the other side of the bridge did not record him emerging on that side. Law enforcement believed that the most likely scenario was that Riley fell from the embankment at the homeless encampment and into the Cumberland River. But no one saw this happen. According to friends of the family, it was not reasonable to believe that he could have made it over a fence, all the way through the rough terrain and into the water, with no one seeing or hearing a thing. From the homeless encampment, there was no clear drop to the water. At this stage, it seemed far more likely that if Riley went into the river, he must have had some help.
He did see Riley, and he did see him walk all the way down the sidewalk to the corner as far as he could see. Until we have the exact information, then we're going to continue to think maybe he went outside the bridge, maybe he got into a car. Until we have the facts, we can only assume that he kept going, or we don't know that he fell.
Nobody says he walked over the retaining wall or went through that fence.
Okay.
So now that you've looked at the terrain and see how drastic it is, even if Riley would have fallen at one spot, you've still got 30 feet before to even get to the water. That's after falling over 20 feet.
The family was keen to speak to the other individual who had reportedly seen Riley at the homeless encampment after he stumbled. The man who called out that he was okay, just drunk. After some asking around, they located that individual, who also requested anonymity.
Person of interest that the family had been wanting to see, the homeless person that we knew had been the last person to talk to Riley up on top of the roadway, we got to talk to finally. He actually reached out Saturday afternoon to some friends of ours that was down there talking with the homeless. Actually gave a statement, him and another person, that Riley had come through there, had been stumbling, possibly stumbled into the little fence that's right there. They asked him if he was okay. He says, yeah, man, I'm just drunk, something along those lines. And they put him walking underneath the bridge north, past through the detention center area.
While the searches continued primarily along the Cumberland River, this witness offered Riley's family a glimpse of hope. If he had emerged on the other side of the bridge, then there was a good chance that he had not fallen into the water. However, just a few days later, after interrogation from the Nashville Police Department, the unnamed person recanted. They said that they had not actually seen Riley, but someone else. The search continued.
We're still hopeful we're bringing him home. Time's ticking, we know that. But, we're doing everything we can to find him. It's the people, the volunteers that are keeping us going.
As volunteers navigated the rough and steep terrain around the Cumberland, amateur sleuths online commenced with their speculation. Reasonable theories suggested that in his inebriated state, Riley made himself a prime target for thieves. If Riley had been robbed, he could have been pushed into the river in the process. But most speculation focused on another scenario, a more elaborate one, that rileystrain was the latest victim of the smiley face killers. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with this theory, it was developed by a small band of retired homicide and missing persons detectives to explain a series of cases in which young men were found dead, likely murdered, but whose deaths have been ruled accidental drownings. These cases have occurred primarily across the Midwest and New York City, though some have been identified elsewhere over roughly the last 2 decades. In each instance, the deceased is a college-aged or slightly older, athletic and or otherwise accomplished male. After a night out at a sporting event or another celebration with friends, for example, they seemingly vanish. Then days, weeks, or months later, their bodies are found in a body of water.
All 3 in this body of water. And don't forget our victim from 17 comes out of the Celtics game. William comes out of a Bruins game.
Right, same thing.
Same exact thing, same exact directions.
And then the other smiley face at the harbor, you found a smiley face, 3 stars, correct?
With 3 stars, correct. In my opinion, that represents the 3 victims from the Boston Harbor that were recovered by the Boston Harbor unit. 3 men, 3 similar sets of circumstances, 1 final destination.
There are further similarities that link these cases. The deceased are often in an unfamiliar city. When their bodies were found, they were often not in a state of decomposition consistent with being in the water throughout the length of their disappearance, suggesting that they were killed on land and later put in the water. The smiley faces, often spray-painted, were routinely located near to the alleged crime scenes. The smiley face gang theory was first popularized by retired New York City detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte. The duo argue that law enforcement is generally disinclined to accept serial killer theories, causing a systematic pushback to their evidence that these smiley face killers exist. In these cases, the detectives claim that not one, but likely a collection of killer cells based in major cities are committing murders and coordinating online. The detectives claim to have found a URL linked to the group, one that enables their communication over the dark web, but they were unable to access it. The detectives have connected 70 deaths to the smiley face graffiti. Around 30 of them were men who were found to have the date rape drug GHB in their systems. The similarities in the disappearance of rileystrain to the circumstances seen in the smiley face cases were too stark for many on social media to ignore. Although the search to find Riley alive continued, speculation online ran wild.
I'm a retired Pennsylvania State Trooper. There has been a lot of chatter on social media about the police are or are not handling this investigation properly. They should have done this, they should have done that. If you're not a trained police officer, your speculation is just that, just speculation. I've been in constant contact with Detective Chandler, and I know that they have been making every effort that they can to bring this investigation, this search to a close. So please, you folks out there on social media, think real hard about what you're going to post before you post it. And that goes as well for posts about the family and about this investigation. The family doesn't really need to see posts on social media that say, well, maybe there's a serial killer out there and that's where he chunked him in the water. That's not cool.
We need to talk about this. Why are so many young men's bodies found in water?
2 nights ago, I looked at my husband and I said, when they find rileystrain, they will find him in a body of water.
Okay, guys, so this is crazy. I just found a little theory that might just blow your mind. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it's called the smiley face murder theory.
There's a network of drug trafficking going on and human trafficking. There's a possibility, Jason, that he was a victim of that.
That's what I'm. Yeah, there's so many different. I don't know.
Well, you know why? Do you know the person that just?
The FBI has examined the smiley face killers' cases and concluded that the majority of the deaths were accidental drownings. The Center for Homicide Research examined 40 of the cases and concluded the same. Many critics of the theory are also quick to point out the popularity of the smiley face. It is a simple and ubiquitous image. It is well known and easy to draw. Nonetheless, support for the theory exploded after Michelle, stepfather Chris, as well as Riley's father Ryan Gilbert and stepmother Millie Gilbert, gave an interview expressing their concerns over the details of Riley's case that had emerged so far. They didn't have the whole story. What's more, Michelle revealed that she had been in contact with Riley once more after the FaceTime at Brooks's bar. Riley had texted her and said that he thought his drink tasted funny.
He had sent me a text and said that he had he was drinking a rum and coke and it didn't taste good. And I said, well, you probably shouldn't drink it then. He goes, well, it tastes like barbecue. And I go, well, that sounds awful. And he said, well, it sounds good, but it's not.
Common advice for avoiding a potentially spiked drink is to stop consuming it if it appears murky or tastes salty or bitter. Most of these drugs, however, are colorless and odorless, making them difficult to detect. Although statistically, women are overwhelmingly more likely to have their drinks spiked, it is estimated that well over 500,000 men each year are also drugged. This number could also be underreported. Anecdotal accounts of men having this experience in Nashville began pouring in, giving the impression, whether accurate or not, that the city's bar scene had a particular issue with drugs such as GHB.
I'm kind of embarrassed by it almost, and I saw your article and I sent it over to my coworkers and I said, "Holy crap, this is too similar. We have to call him."
Nearly the same exact thing happened 2 days before to two other male tourists, again talking to two women, sharing drinks at Kid Rock's, and then remembering nothing else after they were robbed. Detectives say there have been other similar incidents, and there's no telling how many such cases have not been reported, likely something the suspects are counting on.
Questions were being raised online. If this was what had occurred to Riley Strain, was it in connection to the notorious smiley face murder cells? Would Riley be found in the water? TikTokers descended on the city and the embankment, searching for Riley and any clues that could help lead to his whereabouts.
Or at least where that guy's tent is, because he's talking about how cold. What? You found his credit card? We found his credit card. We gotta hang up. We gotta hang up the phone. Oh my God.
Nashville-based TikTokers Anna Clendening, a musician, and Brandy Bainan, an artist, were searching along the river near to Gay Street and the James Robertson Parkway Bridge when they discovered Riley's bank card in amongst the rocks and trash. The location was near to where law enforcement had speculated that he had fallen into the water. For Riley's family, this discovery implied that a crime likely took place. His card was out of his wallet. There were no further signs of Riley identified near to his bank card. In the midst of this development, the family's frustrations over the handling of the case by Nashville police came to the forefront.
Don't shoot the messenger, but I think if we had people with badges right now that was covering this as strongly as the media has, we'd have Riley home.
We'd not seen anything or really heard from them too much throughout the previous week, so we were getting frustrated. We wanted to see what they had. So it's not like this was one of those deals. It came up after we called them to tell them that the TikTokers had found the debit card because they didn't know that it had been found. Supposedly, they didn't know that the call had came in. We arrived before the police. We've also heard multiple people that have tried to call Crime Stoppers and leave tips and been told they don't know anything about a Riley Strain case. So lots of confusion. We're struggling. We're 10 days in, It's disheartening.
Mind that, the card that was found yesterday in the family's mind is evidence that there was a crime, yet we're being told, well, that may not be what it takes to reclassify this from a missing persons.
A reclassification would eventually be made 2 weeks after Riley first disappeared. On the morning of March 22nd, a worker on the river was removing items from the water when he came across a body. He was 8 miles downriver from the James Robertson Bridge.
My company works on the river. I have just found a dead body. I believe it to be Riley.
Okay. And you said you guys found a dead body?
Yes, ma'am, in the river.
It's a
Caucasian.
It looks like a male?
Yes, ma'am.
As they were removing an object from the river, they noticed what appeared to be Riley Strain pop up. The fire department was called in, retrieved the body from the river. The medical examiner's office reviewed the body and saw that it is Riley Strain. The family has been contacted.
The chief was clear in his statement. The medical examiner had been called down to the water to observe. Upon the initial examination, they found no signs of foul play. The preliminary results of an autopsy made the same determination. While a final report was pending, the family took a step back on their critique of law enforcement and simply thanked everyone who had banded together to support them.
To the Nashville Police Department. We know this hasn't been easy. We've tried to handle it with as much grace and poise as we can. It's hard. It's never quick enough when it's your family member. Like I told everybody numerous times, if he was 2 blocks away from us and they were walking him to us, it wasn't quick enough. We want him 2 inches in front of us. So
appreciate everyone's support and love and prayers, because we feel them. We have felt every one of them. Every single one. I just ask that you mamas out there hug your babies tight tonight, please. Please, for me, just hug your babies tight tonight.
There were curious details about the state of Riley-Strain when he was found that are not clearly understood. Riley was found without his cowboy boots on. He had no pants on. He wore only a shirt, boxer shorts, socks, and a watch. Dr. Bill Bass, a Tennessee-based world-leading expert on body decomposition, was asked to assess the likelihood that Riley could have been partially undressed after drowning in the water.
It's unusual. Normally, if you fall in the river, it's very difficult to get your pants off. No, they would not come off by themselves. I would say that somebody took them off. If you do research on this, which is very difficult because you got to kill the person to do it, but it's difficult to get your pants off. It's difficult when you're alive to get your pants off.
In addition, Riley's wallet was missing, but what he did have on his person was his Apple Watch. It was this detail that suggested to many that there had been no robbery. To others, the watch meant nothing. Most thieves knew better than to take watches with GPS tracking and were more likely to have stolen only his cash, perhaps also his expensive boots. The preliminary examination results do not offer any indication that Riley was not in the water for the 2 weeks he was missing, nor has anyone uncovered a smiley face near the bridge where he likely went in. Along with no signs of trauma were a notable lack of cuts or bruising on Riley's body, injuries that one would expect to see had he fallen tens of feet down a steep and rocky cliff before reaching the water. But one detail of the autopsy sounded the most alarm bells. Riley was found with little to no water in his lungs. Understandably confused by the circumstances, the family ordered a second independent autopsy. The results, though not publicly released, are said to be consistent with that of the first. The death was determined to be an accident. Upon receiving the results of their independent second examination, the family retained the law firm Morgan & Morgan, which has launched its own investigation with the aim of finding answers to the many outstanding questions.
Of course, there's a hole in my heart. There always will be. And we may never know what happened that night, and that makes it even worse for me. But yeah, I would like to know everything that happened that day.
There could be an explanation for the little water found in Riley's lungs, according to the medical examiner, Dr. Michael Baden. He stated that drowning without finding water in the lungs is possible, particularly after locating Riley 2 weeks after the fact. The toxicology results were not released alongside the conclusions of the preliminary autopsy. It would be weeks before these were processed. On June 6, 2024, News Channel 5 reported that the toxicology results had been finally completed.
When an autopsy report takes a little while to be released, it makes individuals somewhat suspect that maybe there's a criminal investigation.
News Channel 5 has learned toxicology is now back to go along with the completed autopsy, and all indications are what happened was an accidental death, a drowning.
They reported that by all indications, this was an accidental death and drowning, and that there was no evidence of trauma or that Riley had been drugged. Riley's family has not commented on these results, though a private investigator who claims to have been retained by them has stated that the conclusions of the examination have been misrepresented. What the investigator has uncovered to counter these results, if anything, is unclear. Riley Strain is remembered as an easygoing and caring young man who was full of potential. Riley had loved the outdoors. He was said to have found his peace when spending time by the lake. In the wake of his tragic loss, a Change.com petition is calling for a bill called Riley's Act to be passed. This law would make it mandatory for bars and their employees to call cabs or Ubers for intoxicated or disoriented customers. There are also investigations ongoing as to whether Riley was overserved at the bars on Broadway that night. That was the tragic case of Riley Strain. Thank you for watching, and a special thanks this week to C. Meredith, Stephanie Solger, Stefanini, Dockerell, and Sheila Wilson for joining the Members Lounge. I'm Kevin, this is Just Thought Lounge, and I'll see you in the next one.
Selective, doing all the research, keeping it objective, always been effective. Can say he got a knack, pick of the litter. You see how Newton got his back. Yeah, the content that you need, this could be a new sign. We talk in the comments, they jot in a few lines. Tune in.